Jeff and Nancy, it's great to see you. How have you and the twins been enjoying the holiday season? Oh, really? Wow, that sounds incredible. Well, please have a seat, make yourselves comfortable, and before I forget, I did want to make sure that I answer the question that you left in my voicemail yesterday afternoon regarding whether or not I am a fee-only planner. And the answer to that is yes. As a fee-only planner, all compensation that I receive is derived exclusively in the form of fixed, flat, or performance-based fees. In other words, I don't earn any sort of sales commission for the services that I provide to my clients. Now, on to the reason you're here today, and that is to discuss your comprehensive financial plan. I know there's quite a bit covered in the presentation, but based on our prior discussion, I did gather that you are very concerned about your retirement. And so with that being said, I would like to start there as one of the areas that we'll discuss first during today's presentation. If you will, have a look for me on the far left of the big screen in front of us. Here I show you where I ran the numbers, and I did use the target date, growth and inflation, and needs assumptions that you requested, and determined that as a lump sum in today's dollars, you'll need about $1.864 million to achieve that goal. Currently, you've got about $905,000 in investment assets, which includes about $400,000 for the dry cleaning business. This equates to approximately half of the target capital that you expect to need at retirement, again using the terms that you requested. To offer some alternatives to consider, I tweaked the terms of the goal using various techniques, such as deferring your retirement date, reducing your estimated living expenses after retirement, and changing your investment return expectations. Obviously, no one likes to make sacrifices, and as such, any option that requires you to defer or scale back your dreams, and as it relates to retirement, is an option that is going to make me and hopefully you ask the question, is it really worth it? Of the 4 options I have presented here, I believe that option 3 is the best one. And while it does not quite get you to the 1.864 million target, it does bring it down a couple notches to 1.678 million without you having to make any sacrifices. Instead, I increased the retirement return target from 8 to 9%, which I believe is a reasonable and achievable target. And I will share with you in just a moment why I believe that to be the case. However, before I do, I would like to show you why I think this option grants you the most bang for your buck. In option number 1, here you make a sacrifice. Your future annual needs retirement is reduced from 70% of your current gross employment income to 64%, or about 6% below your target. And in doing so, that only reduces your capital need by about $160,000. In option 2, again, you make a sacrifice. You defer your retirement by 5 years, and by the time you account for inflation, your capital need requirement is actually higher, so that's not going to work. Option 3 requires no sacrifice from a timing or financial perspective. I simply increased the estimated annual investment return target from 8 to 9%. This resulted in a $186,000 reduction in your capital need at retirement. And option 4 requires, again, sacrifice. This time, I reduced your future annual needs requirement, and I increased the estimated annual investment return from 8 to 9%. This resulted in the largest reduction in your capital need, by reducing it by about $330,000. However, again, there were 2 changes to this particular scenario. That said, of all the options I presented, I recommended option 3 because it offers the most significant positive change in terms of reducing your capital need with the least amount of sacrifice on your part. In fact, it has no change with respect to your personal goals, your standard of living, or timeline to retirement. I'm going to pause for a moment and ask if you have any questions so far. Okay then, let's move on. So now I'd like to discuss why I believe 9% is a reasonable and achievable return target, as well as ways that we can ramp up your contributions to your retirement accounts. Currently, your comprehensive investment account is earning about 8.87%. To get to that 9% or perhaps even slightly higher return target, I believe we should more closely examine what you own, both on the equity and fixed income side, and consider reallocating a portion of that to market-linked notes. So that allocation would technically be a equity allocation from a return profile, and from a risk perspective, it would be more bond-like in that it is a structured note that happens to be tied to a market. So there's some risk controls on it. And really what this option does is it allows you to maintain some market exposure, but do so at a level of comfort or that you are more comfortable with. In other words, it sort of tweaks the risk return profile of that market exposure. And we'll talk about, some different options in the structured product space at one of our next meetings. Currently you have a net positive cash flow position of about $18.5 thousand a year. And given that you need to grow that investment pot pretty substantially over the next 6 years, I honestly would recommend contributing at least $15,000 or more annually to your various retirement accounts to play a bit of catch up, as well as obviously receive the corresponding tax benefits. Also, consider selling that coin collection and putting those proceeds towards your retirement accounts. Other factors that should help you feel a bit more comfortable that you should have the cash flow that you need and desire during your retirement would be the fact that you should receive annual installment payments from the sale of the dry cleaning business for the first, call it 14 to 20 years of retirement. And that's really just going to depend on the date that you guys decide to sell the business to Ryan. You've opted to exclude your Social Security benefits from the calculation, which I think is honestly very smart. It definitely builds in a cushion, and that total amount really equates to anywhere from about $29,000 to call it $41,500, depending on when you ultimately decide to start actually receiving those benefits. And then also I recommended later on in the presentation a pretty substantial increase to your life and group term life policies to cover your needs in the event that either of you passes away prematurely. Well, that's it for me. I hope that I've done a really good job walking you through your retirement goals and considerations. And that said, what questions do you have for me? All right. Well, thank you both for your time and attention today. I hope you found this to be a valuable use of your time, and I hope you have a wonderful new year. I look forward to meeting with you all again.